Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today is Monday, January 15th, 2024. The markets here in the United States are closed in observance of a federal holiday, so there is no stock price movement to talk about today. There is, however, quite a bit to perhaps talk about with regard to grid prices. So this is the GRIDS Gone Wild episode of the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Hopefully, we will have many more episodes like this in the future. Episodes whereby, for example, let's pull up the first slide, please. As we can see, the grids have gone wild, right? Grid pricing, both at PJM Penelec as well as at PJM PP&L. Those are the two zones within the PJM grid that, Stronghold Digital Mining has the opportunity to sell electricity into. As you can see from those charts, prices have gone wild as temperatures in the area have dropped. Okay, back to me now, please. So what does this really mean? We have to keep in mind, right, that Stronghold Digital Mining, unlike many other publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies, has some optionality around what it does with its electricity, right? We own and operate our own power plants, basically, right? And those power plants can do one of two things with the electricity that they produce. They can sell the electricity to the grid, and by doing so, generate some really useful revenue. Or, depending on what is going on in the Bitcoin market, the electricity that's produced at these power plants can be used in-house, sort of like a behind-the-meter sort of transaction, right, where we use the electricity ourselves to mine Bitcoin. Now, there's going to be a price point at which, right, all of the electricity that's being generated will be sold to the grid. Then there's going to be a price point where none of the electricity, or, well, let's phrase it this way, the overwhelming majority of the electricity that's being generated will be used to mine Bitcoin. There's always going to be some level of connectivity with the grid. But then there is something in the middle, right? Because we have the sophistication within these data centers to say, hey, you know what? There are some Bitcoin mining machines that are best turned off, or at least put in like low power mode, and all of that electricity that they would otherwise have been, using, that electricity should go to the grid because grid prices are more favorable than what those specific Bitcoin mining machines would be able to produce in the way of revenue. So you have that level of sophistication where, depending on how high grid prices get, then yes, all the electricity goes to the grid. If it's somewhere in the middle and you might have some extremely efficient Bitcoin mining machines that are still mathematically more economical to be sending electricity to, right? Because the amount of revenue being generated is higher than what would be generated if you took that same electricity and sold it to the grid, then those Bitcoin mining machines will continue to operate. That's kind of cool, isn't it? So yeah, sometimes, to kind of keep it simple, I know I sometimes describe it as like an on and off switch, right? Where it's like we're either mining for Bitcoin or we're taking that electricity and we're, selling it to the grid. There is that middle zone, which is quite interesting, and it would really require my mapping, these data centers quite extensively. And I do think that kind of is beyond the scope of, what this channel is attempting to accomplish, right? This is, we're trying to talk about things at a somewhat elevated way. This almost borders into like industrial espionage, right? If we're getting into the data centers and like figuring out exactly which machines are shutting off or staying on depending on what grid prices are at, right? So, but I'm just pointing that out because sometimes you look at the dashboard, and for simplicity's sake, I tend to do like an on-off type deal, you know what I mean? Where like, hey, if grid prices are higher than Bitcoin priced in dollars per megawatt hour, then the presumption is, hey, probably most of that electricity is going to be going to, basically the grid, right? By contrast, if BTCMW or Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin priced in, dollars per megawatt hour, if that number is higher than grid prices, generally speaking, you're going to see a lot of electricity then being used to mine Bitcoin. Keeping in mind, there's always going to be a remnant amount of electricity that's being used not only to keep these purpose-built facilities, right, Scrubgrass in Western Pennsylvania, Panther Creek in eastern Pennsylvania, right? They do draw some electricity themselves to function. So, you're going to have that, and you're going to have some electricity that's just going to be going to the grid, a little bit of it at least. So, hey, this is really, really interesting because temperatures are forecasted to continue dropping, or to at least get somewhat colder as the week progresses. So we'll have to see if grids are going to continue to go wild, so to speak, or if we're going to maybe see things going kind of back to normal. But you know what? Here's the really awesome thing. I'm taking a look at hash prices right now. They're at about 10 cents, just a little bit under 10 cents. So even though the price of Bitcoin's at $42,800 a coin, more or less, the nice thing is that the Bitcoin network hash rate has dropped down to about 420. It's kind of funny, right? Dropped to 420. Maybe 6 months ago, 420 would have been a pretty high number. These days, it's, I guess, considerably lower than what we've seen the Bitcoin network hash rate at lately, right? But I'll tell you, so even if grid prices were to kind of stabilize and kind of go back to sleep, that's fine, because you know what? There's plenty of revenue to be generated by mining Bitcoin. Okay, so financial markets will be open tomorrow. We'll see what happens with our stock price. Going to continue to monitor what's going on with grid prices. And as I said, this will become something that we perhaps talk about a bit more often as the winter months unfold. Grids gone wild. Are they going to go wild some more this winter? And then, of course, we have the summer to look forward to, right? That's when the potential really exists for grids to go super wild, right? Or so has been the case in the past. Okay, my friend, I hope you're doing well. Let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.